We stay in the Middle East. The United States has carried out another round of airstrikes on Yemen, targeting the Ras Isa oil port in Hodeidah, a site already hit last month in a strike that killed at least 80 people. According to Houthi-run media, 7 fresh US strikes hit the al-Salif district overnight. This renewed bombing comes as the Houthis launched 2 missiles towards Israel, aiming the Ramat David airbase and the Tel Aviv area. The Israeli military says both were intercepted, though the outcome of the second is still being verified. The Houthis claim the use of hypersonic missiles, calling the strike a military operation in solidarity with the Palestinians of Gaza. The group says their attacks will continue unless Israel agrees to a permanent truce. Meanwhile, rights groups are raising alarms over the rising civilian death toll in Yemen. At least 43 people have died in Israeli airstrikes, according to latest reports in the Gaza Strip. The United States, Israel, and a new international foundation are nearing a deal to resume humanitarian aid to Gaza without involvement from Hamas, Axios reported, citing Israeli and US officials. Meanwhile, aid ship organised by the Freedom Flotilla Coalition was struck by drones in international waters off Malta. The group says the mission aimed to break Israel's blockade of Gaza. The International Court of Justice concluded hearings on Israel's responsibility to allow UN and other agencies to operate in occupied Palestinian territories. The Arab League told the Israeli court that Israel is legally obliged to not interfere with the UNRWA's operations. Representatives Mohammed Helal stressed that the UN is fulfilling its duty to protect Palestinian welfare until a just resolution is reached. WHO Chief Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus has called the situation in Gaza catastrophic and urged for a ceasefire and the release of captives. Amnesty International is also demanding Israel end what it describes as a war crime, using starvation of civilians as a method of warfare. Erica Guevara Rosas, Amnesty's senior director, says Gaza is an inferno of death and destruction due to the ongoing siege and fighting. More from the Middle East once again. Iran is standing firm despite fresh pressure from the United States. In a strong statement, Tehran said continued US sanctions on its trade partners, including threats targeting oil sales, will not alter its foreign policy. This comes after President Donald Trump warned that any country or individual buying even a small amount of Iranian oil would face immediate secondary sanctions. Trump's remarks follow the postponement of planned nuclear talks, with Iran blaming logistical issues. Still, Iran says it's open to a just and balanced deal, but it insists sanctions must end. France, meanwhile, has raised fresh concerns, warning that Iran is on the brink of developing nuclear weapons, a claim that Tehran strongly denies, calling it absurd. We now move over to the Indo-Pacific, where Singaporeans are casting their votes today in a general election that represents the first major test for Prime Minister Lawrence Wong and his long-ruling People's Action Party. The PAP, in power for 66 years, is expected to maintain a strong majority in Parliament. Wong, popular for leading Singapore's COVID task force, took over as Prime Minister last year from his predecessor, Lee Hsien Loong. Wong has stressed the need for a strong mandate to navigate Singapore through economic challenges, particularly the impact of US tariffs. He has warned that Singapore could face several economic impacts if tariffs against China are implemented, and has called on Singaporeans to make an informed decision, stressing the importance of the election for the nation's future. Political analysts say local issues rather than geopolitics will be the key to voters' decisions, particularly with rising costs of living and job security. Younger voters who are more open to alternative political voices could be a factor in the election outcome. The Workers' Party, the country's largest opposition group, is hoping to build on its historic gains in 2020. The party has attracted massive crowds at rallies, criticising the government for raising the goods and services tax amid rising inflation and costs of living. The PAP, however, points to the billions spent to support civilians with cash handouts and other assistance. With 2.75 million eligible voters, polling stations opened at 8 a.m. and will close at 8 p.m, with results expected to begin coming in at around midnight. Well, that's all we have time for. We will continue to bring you more news updates from around the world.